moment to shine on Happy Camper Life. We're loving, living, and learning online on Happy Camper Life.
Hi, I'm Allison Miller, founder, CEO of Happy Camper Live, and your host on the Happy Camper Live podcast series, Raising a Happy Camper. And I am totally thrilled today to have with me Aimee Schluter from Best in You Life Coaching. And Aimee, I just wanted to say good morning and thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, so I just want to jump in. We have such a great topic today, but first I wanted you to introduce yourself so everybody can, learn a lot about you and Best in You Life Coaching.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a certified life coach for teens and young adults, which is super rare because most life coaches are just for adults. So I get to coach our younger generation, which is fantastic. And so a lot of people don't even know what life coaching is. So I'll just give the teens a brief overview of that. So think of me as the GPS of your life, right? So if you're driving the road of life, you need help along the way. You need direction. You need to learn how to handle the bumps along the way, any roadblocks that come up. And so I really help with the stuff that goes on up here in your mind. So the thoughts, which trigger feelings and action. So we really work on a lot of that kind of stuff in coaching. And so I'm kind of the mentor and the guide to help teens navigate life easier.
It's just amazing what you're doing. And I was thinking about this in the context of summer camp. There are incredible adults out there that have the ability to support kids, teens, in ways that people don't really know about, and how important it is to have somebody. Parents are great, teachers are great, but to have somebody like you or a role model that's sort of outside that network gives kids a lot of perspective and support that they need.
Absolutely. And a bunch of us teen coaches were just talking about who was our mentor growing up. And so many of them either didn't have a mentor because it wasn't, some people had parents that were mentors, but some didn't even have their parents as mentors. They just couldn't look up to them. And so it's nice to have people outside of the home, like teachers, camp counselors, other, even coaches with, sports and athletics, just be that mentor for teens. It's great.
And you work with the parents as well. And what is the capacity in which you work with them?
Yeah, so I will coach them individually because I believe in healing families. Sometimes we need more help with with everybody in the family, but I create a little portal for them to kind of listen. They're like little audio trainings for them so they can listen in and learn the same things that their kids are being coached on. And so they speak the same language and they start learning some of the same things that they can implement as well to help them parent more effectively.
So I say hats off to those parents that are, working with you and with the teens, because I think sometimes teens are really overlooked in terms of when they get to sort of those teenage years. Sometimes parents are they don't know what to do. They're kind of it doesn't have to be that way. There are other ways to support their kids. When they're little, there's so many different things, right? It feels like there's tons of resources, and they get to be a teenager. And I'm a parent. I have 2 kids in their 20s now, but I remember feeling wow, these are just whole different group of issues, and the support gets less and less, in the schools, as they get older.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's harder to be a teenager now. When your parents were teens, it was a lot different. There's a lot of different factors now. Obviously, COVID and social media, we didn't have to deal with that when we were teens. And so being a teen is hard enough. So yeah, they're definitely facing a lot of issues where parents really just don't know how to deal with it. So
Yeah, so we were going to talk today about from fearful to confident.
Mhm.
So why don't you sort of introduce the topic to everybody?
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about fear first because we got to figure out where it comes from, right? So fear comes from, guess what? Your thoughts all up here, right? And so what's really interesting to me is 80% of our success is determined up here in our thoughts. And only 20% of our success is skill and strategy. And so what do we focus on? Most of us, teens, adults, we all focus on the skill and strategy, which is great, but we're missing that other 80% because we tell ourselves untrue thoughts all day long. And that's what goes on
Right.
in our head. And so there's really, for teens, there's two places where the fear comes from. One is, it's the thought, but it's something called our inner voice. And some people refer to it as the inner critic. And it tells us untrue stories all day long about us and about situations, about other people, but mainly about us. So it tells us we're not good enough, right? In some form or fashion. It just goes constantly in our head. You're not smart enough, you're not good looking enough, you're not athletic enough, whatever it is. And it happens to all of us. And it's completely normal. So if you're experiencing that, you're not alone. Everybody has it. And so it's there to just protect us so we don't take risks. Okay. And it kind of just keeps us in fear because it's telling us not to take the risk. So the other thing is based on past experiences.
Right.
So it could be our past experience as a teen, right? Or somebody else's we've witnessed. And we don't want to oh, that happened before. So we think it's going to happen again.
Right.
And so those two things alone really keep us in fear most of the time. And we tend to hold back and not pursue the things that we really want to do because of all those thoughts in our head.
So today we're going to help teens
Mhm.
by giving them some tips on how they can overcome these fears and become more confident.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Exactly.
Awesome. It made me think of a song. I don't know if you're familiar with Jason Mraz's song, Living in the Moment.
Mm.
It's a great song. It's a great camp song. And it's really about living in the moment and letting go of what I don't know. And how maybe we'll play it at the end. I pulled it up on my screen. It's
That's great.
fantastic song, and kids really relate to music. And for me, that's just one song that's very grounding and really a reminder of living in the moment and not putting all these traps in our way.
I love it. And that's so much based around what coaching does. And, music is so healing, and it's, just being able to put on music can change your whole mood and mindset. So use that as a tool, you guys, really, teens can use that as a tool to make them feel better.
Yeah, and maybe we should set up a nice playlist for this after on Spotify. I think that would be great. We'll definitely put this song on. So tell me, how does fear help us? How does it limit us? I mean, we've kind of covered where it comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how it helps us is it's actually a natural protection mechanism that keeps us from getting hurt. So if you've never heard of the fight or flight response, it's in all of us. It's normal. It's like when you touch a hot stove, you're going to pull away because you're feeling pain, right? And so it tries to keep us from pain, either physical pain, like touching the hot stove, or mental pain. Maybe the mental pain is like studying for a test, right? It doesn't, it's technically you feel pain, right? So it also has the other opposite is where, we can move towards pleasurable things, like maybe playing video games, right? Or going to camp, right? That's pleasurable, and doing fun activities that you like. So, so it's really normal to have that in all of us. But so that's how it helps us because it's protecting us. But how it limits us is it keeps us in fear based on untrue stories that our mind tells us. So we kind of already covered that a little bit, but it keeps us from doing the things we want to do because we're in fear. And so, for example, would be like if you wanted to try out for the soccer team, but in your mind, that little voice is telling you, well, you're not good enough. You're not going to make the team. Don't even bother. Right? We all get those thoughts all day long. So that's how it really limits us, because then we just like, oh, well, I'm afraid that I'll feel pain if I get rejected or I don't make the team, so I'm not even going to try. So that's how it limits us, because we don't then step into the things we really, really want to do.
Yeah. So how do we get through it? How do we get past the untrue thoughts and the stories so we're not fearful anymore?
Yeah. So just know that you're never going to get rid of the stories going on up there, right? It's practice. Everything I do and teach the teens is practice, because we're never perfect. We're human. So they're not going to go away, but you need to learn how to control them. And so the most powerful thing you can do is just start recognizing when you have those thoughts, right? Because if you don't recognize them, you can't, you don't know what to do with them. You don't know how to handle them. And so just recognize that they're untrue, right? So you just start like, okay, I'm getting that thought, but I don't have to believe it, because it's just the story my mind is telling me. And so there's this really fun thing I just learned that I'll share. It's called WAIT. And that stands for what am I thinking? So you can tell yourself, wait, and take a step back and say, what am I thinking? Okay. And then you're going to ask yourself, how true is that? Like, is it really true? And most of the time it's no, right? Your thought's going to try to tell you it's true, but it's really not. And if you really can determine that it's not true, that will keep you, from not being held back or limited by those thoughts. And then, yeah.
I was just going to say that, what you're talking about applies to teens, and I love that your audience. And I just think, like, as adults too, and also like parents right now, we're like all stressed out. I mean, there's just so much going on. And I do this all the time. I say, you're just making it up. Like, what you're thinking is not true. You're just making it up. So come up with something that's better and more supportive of you if you're going to make something up anyway, So
yeah, I'm
just thinking that, like, the things that you're teaching and coaching these kids, it's not just to get through teen years. It's how do you get, I'm in my 50s. It's like, these are skills that they're going to have with them for the rest of their life.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell them, that you can't unlearn this stuff. Once you learn it and start practicing it, it just becomes your normal. And you realize how much that you needed it, right? Same with parents. That's why I feel it's so important to incorporate stuff for them too, because it is universal. The stuff I teach teens, I also teach adults. It's all the same.
And also for a parent to support, like, I had my son calling me all stressed out about something yesterday too. And I was like, okay, like, being the parent to support, like you're saying, absolutely requires you to be speaking the same language. And so by you providing that guidance on both ends is really fantastic. So
thank you. It is important. It really is.
Yeah, and your parents need to commit to it. So that I think sometimes it's like, oh, okay, here, I'll send you here, or it's like, no, we're a family, and we all want to, sort of get through our teen years together and provide the most healthy environment, for your kids. That's what I love about summer camp, because when kids come to summer camp, it's a partnership between the families and the camp. And sometimes parents are like, oh no, we're just dropping them off. I'm like, no, we're not just dropping off. Like, if there are issues and there's things, like, we've got to partner together so that we can help your kid through it. So I just really appreciate how you're covering all of the different aspects of, the support here. So how do these great teens start building their confidence?
Well, one of the, some of the stuff, if we can go back to some of the, how do they get past some of these untrue thoughts? So one of the fun things they can do is they can name this little voice in their head, right? A little critic. And so sometimes when you give it a name, you can like call it out, right? Be like, hey, Bob, thanks for trying to protect me, but I'm good here, right? So it's kind of just a fun way to like give it a name because it's something you can't really see. So kind of give it an identity, right? And
It's like,
so,
what was that show a long time ago? Mr. Kazoo, the little, I might be dating myself, but this is Kazoo. What was it? And
oh, I know what you're saying too. I
Flintstones or
can't
something.
remember.
And they
Yeah,
would like pop up and it was like Mr. Kazoo. It's like, no,
yeah, yeah. Like, no, don't make me do that. So yeah, yeah. And then, part of what we were kind of touching on this just a minute ago, but just really, if you're focusing on like the problem, you're not going to get past it. So you
Okay.
really need to like focus on the solution. So often, especially with teens, this is everybody, but especially with teens, because they are the same, like they're focused on the skill and the strategy. Their parents are focused on the skill and the strategy. So what they do is they think too far ahead and they focus on that outcome, right? Like what I want to, I need to do good on this test, or, I need to pass this class or whatever it is, right? And what happens is they're so focused on that, it stresses them out and paralyzes them now. That's why there's a lot of lack of motivation going on, because we just get overwhelmed. Teens get overwhelmed and then we just kind of shut down. So what's super important is to focus on like right now. This is going to help you not stay out of fear and stay out of stress. What can you do right now? So say we're talking about like a test, right? Or maybe, we'll use a test. So if you have a test coming up and you're stressed about it, don't look at the test and what grade you're going to get. What can you do right now to get the outcome you want? So when you're saying that song, like living in the moment, being in the moment, that's, you only have right now. So that's all you need to focus on is right now. What can you do? And so that helps curb the fear and lowers the stress and anxiety too at the same time.
So let's do another example, because I think that's great. Trying to think of something that might show up during the summer. So what about somebody who's challenged and fearful of like taking a risk, like maybe climbing up a wall and going down a zip line or something like that? It's not like the example maybe of that, but it'd be something where they might stop themselves from doing something that they might find is really exhilarating and fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can totally relate. I'm not a heights person, but I thought, ooh, ziplining looks so fun. And my son was a Boy Scout. And so I just did it and it was a blast. And sometimes when you're in those situations, deep down, you're like, yeah, I totally want to do that. But that voice in your head is like, don't do that. Stay safe, And so that's where that voice is going to come up again and be like, try and talk you out of things that you kind of really, truly want to do. And so sometimes you just like, it's kind of like Nike says, you just have to do it. And there is Mel Robbins, who the teens won't know, but she has a really great technique that I teach the teens. And it's called the 5-second rule. Okay. So you just kind of count backwards from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you just do it. And but you have to go right at 1, because if you don't, your mind's going to try to talk you out of it again. So
I love that. I wish I knew that when I was a kid, because we used to have this big diving board at the pool we would go to, the community pool. Yeah. And I would just stand there and I'd climb out to the end and then I would climb back and I'd watch all the kids jumping and I just wouldn't go. But if I had that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it just doesn't allow the space to like go back,
Yeah. And it's such an easy, like no brainer, technique to do. And it really works well for teens.
Yeah. And I think, when you said to be in the moment and not, and look at the solution, like I look at something like a climbing wall and I'm like, you don't need to get to the top. You just need to try and let's just get to the first. I think they're like, I forgot what they call the handles, but it's just like, all right, let's just try. Let's first just put the equipment on. Yep. Like that's the first step, and then see if that's comfortable. And then let's just see, maybe you'll do 2 of them. And yes, the goal might be to get, to the top, but maybe we don't get to the top the first day. and you come back to the course. You don't have to, not everything has to be like a full on, dive in. If it requires sometimes practice. I think sometimes kids see results of other kids and their other kids are doing so well, and they don't realize that kid's been shooting baskets in their driveway every night, and the other one is like, I just want to shoot a basket and I can't do it. Well, okay, we're going to learn. Step one, we're going to, practice. And so I think that sometimes kids compare or just see like the result they want, and they're not always aware of what goes on to like get there.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you mentioned that, because it is so important. It really is. And when we're doing goal setting, what's the first thing? What's the first thing you need to do? Because that's all you need to focus on right now.
Right.
Because there's a lot of steps in getting to the end of a goal. And sometimes you don't get there and you're successful anyway. Because it just feels good to get to this point. Maybe your goal wasn't even what you thought it was, right? And so,
right.
Yeah.
Going in another direction, but you've got that skill, right? That you've learned from whatever it is that you've been working on.
Right. And instead of the comparison, I mean, just look at just have fun. That is what, life is about, having fun, and just enjoy it. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Right.
Yeah. That comparison, I think, gets in the way a lot. So I think you had some ideas specifically about ways that these teens can support themselves in overcoming their fear and starting to build confidence. So I would love to, hear. I know you have a great list, and I can't wait to
Yeah, I have a whole list, and I'm going to glance at it because I have so many fun things to share. So, so a lot of the things we discussed, once you start implementing, they'll just automatically start building your confidence. Because once you're more aware and you've taken back your control of your thoughts, you're going to shift to a place of more confidence. It's just, they're very highly correlated. So the other thing is you're going to have a choice then. You're going to have a choice that you can start taking action instead of just sitting in the fear, right? And so, you don't have to listen to those untrue thoughts that are coming up for you, and you can take action, which gives you your control back, which also, it makes your confidence go way up. So here are just some additional ways that you can build your confidence. Okay. So one of the biggest ones that you can just automatically start practicing is you're going to create a new thought. So when you do the wait, what am I thinking?
Right.
You're going to okay, well, what's a new thought I can have? Because this other one is just a story that's coming up. So what's really true here, and what's a new thought I have? So maybe we go back to the, trying out for soccer or whatever. I'm going to try out for soccer because you know what? I don't even know what the outcome is going to be. I'm just going to have fun, right? Like what I talked about. And I'm going to enjoy the process, and whatever happens, happens. And so you can just give yourself a new thought. And, and if I don't make the team, it's not the end of the world, because I also play baseball or whatever, so it's really just how you look at things and what you start telling yourself with that new thought. So some other practices you can do is affirmations. And so affirmations is something you're going to say nice about yourself. Right. So a lot of people put sticky notes on the mirror when they're getting ready in the morning. They see their affirmations. You can put them in your phone. They can pop up as reminders. You can do a little vision board if you want, but it's telling yourself all your great qualities. I am smart. A lot of them start with I am statements too. I'm smart. I am a kind person. I am fun, right? And I am confident is a great one, because one of the other things is visualizing. So a lot of those can go very well with the affirmations, because studies have proven that when you visualize something, your brain doesn't know the difference between if it's really happening or not. So they use this a lot in sports, where they've done studies where people practice and then other people visualize, and the people who visualize do the same or better by just visualizing. So visualization is really powerful. So if you want to build more confidence, you can visualize yourself as more confident, or maybe put yourself in a situation where you don't feel as confident and then visualize yourself with more confidence. So,
I'm
yeah.
big on visualization. I remember when my daughter was a gymnast, she was younger,
Mhm.
and she needed to land a cartwheel on the balance beam, which was really hard. And I guess she had a bad fall once. And so she was really fearful of getting back on the beam. But in order to compete, she had to like do this. And at some point, like she just didn't want to like even try. And the coach said to her, you know, this is part of the standard routine in gymnastics. It's all at some level, it's all standard. And so it was all about visualization. And she kept seeing herself do the cartwheel on the beam and the cartwheel on the beam and the cartwheel on the beam and do the cartwheel on the beam with people watching and do cartwheel on the beam in the competition and successfully landing it. And I remember just like when she went to the competition and she like lands this cartwheel on the beam, it's like, you did it,
Yeah.
you know, but it was a lot of visualization for her, you know.
Yeah. And it's so, I mean, it's great. Your brain doesn't know the difference. So if it's really happening or not, so keep visualizing. Like, it's so powerful to visualize, you know, what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if it's something, like you said, like something that you're trying to practice, you know. So the other thing is gratitude. It's really important. And we hear this a lot as adults, but it's really important for teens to practice gratitude. And it's really just being grateful for whatever's going on, because we always tend to look at the negative things. And so it's great to do it in the morning, really powerful also to do it at night at the end of your day. Like, what are you grateful for? I often tell my clients, like, do this as a family, do it at dinner time, or, you know, gather all once during the day and say, you know, what you're grateful for. Or you can even do a gratitude jar where everyone writes it down every day and you put it in a jar, and then you can empty it out, you know, during the holidays, or, you know, every week, or however you want to do it. But it's really nice to like see what we're grateful for. And that just changes the thoughts in your mind from negative
Absolutely.
to positive, right?
We do that at camp. Actually, it's a really big part of, you know, at camp when kids go away, they live in a bunk with other kids and counselors, and you become a family. I mean, that really is the dynamic that develops. And so every night before the kids go to bed, teens, kids, it doesn't matter the age, we talk about the highs, like what was your day like? What are you appreciate? Wow, that wouldn't come out.
I know it's a long one.
It's really a great way also, because when you say it out loud, you know, it really takes more. Well, you could probably explain that, how much more it supports you when you're actually saying it out loud to another person, you know?
Yeah, because sometimes hearing it resonates more. And
Mhm.
that's what, like, when I work with clients, a lot of times they already know everything, but until they actually verbalize it, it's they can't process it 100%. So I think that's so important that you do that. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
And that brings me to another one, something called mirror work.
Mhm.
So so you could do your gratitude in a mirror, but you can also do kind of like your affirmations in the mirror as well. And it might be uncomfortable at first because we're not used to like looking at ourselves and telling ourselves nice things about ourselves. But you can look in the mirror and be like, you know, I'm pretty, I'm kind, I'm capable, I'm, you know, all these nice things about yourself. And you know, I'm having a good hair day or whatever, or like, you know, whatever it is. But you talk to yourself in the mirror and give yourself the love that you deserve, you know, and the recognition. And so, so that's, you know, that kind of goes along with that. But a lot of the things that, you know, some other things are just stepping out of your comfort zone and trying stuff, almost like we were talking about before, like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sometimes you just have to go for it. You just have to look at it, have fun, and try things, right? And sometimes you don't even think, well, maybe I'm not interested in this or that. But just try it, because you just don't know. There's a lot of things I thought I wasn't interested in, and I've tried and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Like, why didn't I do this sooner?
I have to go back to mirror work for a second.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
So I am a huge proponent of mirror work. I've done mirror work for probably 6 years. And I think part of the success of Happy Camper Live is that work that I've done. And I don't know if you've heard of Lisa Nichols. Do you know Lisa Nichols? She's a motivational coach. She's fantastic as well. And she has a very specific way of doing mirror work, which I'm sure you have a technique too. And it's a practice. And I really do think that at first it's really weird to be looking at yourself. It's weird to look at ourselves on Zoom. Now we're used to it, right? Like at the beginning, it was like, oh, here I am on Zoom, like, oh, but looking at yourself in the mirror. And, for me, it was, saying what I was proud of, I'm proud of you for this, or I forgive you for this, or I commit to something that I was doing. And that's how she recommends the mirror work. And you say 7 things each time. So I'm proud of you for this, and then and it's just stream of consciousness. And it's amazing to see what comes out, because all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize, like, I'm proud of myself for doing this podcast today. And I'm proud of just whatever these things are. So I think there's such value in that. And sometimes with teens and anybody you're coaching, I'm sure you give this advice, but it's really about, like, doing it. Like pick something from this podcast and try it. And don't just be a podcast listener, be somebody who takes action, because you're giving people just great, teens and their parents right now, great advice, really great advice.
Yeah, thank you. And it is, it can be overwhelming, because I'm going to give so many things, but just try one. Like, just like we were saying before, just start with the baby stuff. Like, just do one thing, right? And if you want to add things later, that's fine, but just do the thing that resonates with you the most. And, the mirror work it can be difficult at first. I literally, the first time I did it, looked at myself in the mirror, and I was just like, I couldn't get the words out. Like, I literally was like, because it was so awkward, and just like, I'm talking to myself, like, and I have to say something nice, like, but once I did it, the words just started flowing. Like, I empowered myself. So it's a great thing to do. It really is.
I think too is like finding a place where you're going to get these reminders. Like I have Post-its all over. I have 2 screens here. I have Post-its everywhere. I have Post-its in my bathroom. So like for the mirror work, it's sitting on my bathroom mirror, the Post-it, and those reminders keep you in check, I think, throughout the day or the week or whatever it is that you're practicing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I joke with my clients. I'm like, hey, use your phone for function instead of just for fun, because it really has a lot of great value for you. Like, set reminders to remind yourself of things to do. You can have these little affirmation things, like do an affirmation, do your mirror work, or whatever. Like, use your phone for the functions. It has so many awesome things for you, right?
There was a time when I set my alarm I think it was like every 20 minutes, to make sure that I got up from my computer and walked around. So every 20 minutes, my kids would be yelling at me, your alarm's going off again, your alarm's going off again. But it was so great because it was for a function. And every 20 minutes, I made sure, like, I got up and, did what best supported me. So nobody's looking at your phone to see what the reminder's for. Nobody has to know what why the alarm is going off. I never told them, but it was, it was to benefit me. So I'm just thinking, like, all right, so do we get a name first? Is that our first step? Do we do our 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Like, these things are not hard. I think you could probably incorporate a lot of them, right away, even though one step at a time, but these are really practical tips that you're giving these teens that can really make a difference.
Thank you. Yeah, they're simple. They really are. You just have to be consistent with them. Like, so that's why the reminder is important, because we all get busy every day, especially teens. They have stuff coming from every angle, right? You know,
Right.
school, maybe activities, parents, siblings, what friends, you know, like social media, like everything's coming at. So of course you're going to forget,
Right.
right? So remind yourself, because you're important and you deserve it.
And well, that's what I was going to say is like, what's the benefit? I think when the teens can see the benefit and really understand what would life be like if, you know, I was more confident, if I felt less stress, and if you could see the impact that these changes would have on you to have that confidence. And I think that's something that I would love for you to share. Like, what can a teen expect to shift for them to change?
Yeah. So again, it's really just going to be the mindset of how you look at yourself and how you think about yourself. And so it's all of the techniques I'm doing are to combat that voice, that inner voice that tells us we're not good enough. It's really that simple. So if you stop thinking those thoughts and start thinking positive ones, you're going to have more confidence. It just and less stress. Honestly, it all is going to go together. And so it's simple, but yet if you don't know what you don't know, if you're not, and that's where you got to create the awareness, because if you don't recognize it and you don't know, you can't do anything about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I had so much fun speaking with you today.
Yeah, I did too. It was
Aimee,
awesome.
thank you so much for joining us at the Happy Camper Live podcast. I mean, this has been great and a lot of value here for parents and teens. And I'd love to have you back, and maybe we can have another convo that's really specific about parents and talk about some of those audio files you have over there.
Yeah.
That gold mine for parents.
Yes.
That what I appreciate is that we were able to talk to the teens, and, you know, just know that, you know, we really value, you know, you as a teenager, and want to support you. And it's, you know, it's a challenging time, and it's been hard. And if there's things that, you know, we can offer at Happy Camper Live, and, you know, you're offering, you know, as a coach, you know, just to know that, like, there are ways that life can be less stressful and easier. And, you know, there are resources out there. And, you know, Aimee, you're just a great resource for that. And I appreciate you being on the podcast. And
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I thank you for having me. I love what you're doing too with everything. So
thank you. Okay. So we're going to make sure that everybody likes us and subscribes to us on YouTube. And you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and any other place where podcasts are found, which these days there are a lot of places where you can find podcasts. So hopefully this finds its way to into the earbuds of a lot of teens. And they can leave this podcast after listening, feeling more confident and less stress, and know that there is a great resource out there. Aimee Schluter, life coach, who is there to support teens and families all year long. So thank you again.
thank you.
Take a moment to shine.